I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Jabbett.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate it wherever you might be. This is Matt Jabbett alongside Nikki Jabbett, and we are a traveling couple that is sharing with you our lifestyle on the road. We've been traveling for over a year and a half now, and it has been a blast seeing all the different cultures and experiencing all the different cities and meeting amazing people along the way as we document it on passportjoy.com and on this podcast. And our hope is to help share with you tips and tricks so you can have a great weekend getaway, a long vacation, or if you're trying to do something like we are currently doing, give you the things that we're learning along the way so you can make those long-term travel goals. We are currently sitting in Bangkok, Thailand, which has become our hub of the Southeast Asia, our trips here. It is an amazing city. We love it. But today we're going to reflect on our last 3 weeks in Japan. We just arrived here from Japan. We already did a part one of our first 3 weeks, and today we're going to talk about our final 3 weeks in Japan and cover Kyoto, Kyotango, and back to Tokyo, where we did saw sumo wrestling and really enjoyed our time in Japan. We go over the whole thing. If you're just getting caught up with the podcast, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. We know that our coverage is growing, and we're thankful for that. Please check out the Journey So Far tab at passportjoy.com to get caught up on all of our travels over our period in over 30 countries. It goes month by month, country by country, and it breaks down some of the stuff that we've seen in those places and also shares links to the items that we think are important based on what we've documented so far. So that's an easy place to go find all that information and get caught up to speed. And thank you also to those that are joining for the first time through what was just released, the World Barbershop Adventures. We're extremely excited about that. It documents my time in barber chairs around the world. We released the first 6 episodes on YouTube just this past week, and extremely excited about that. Great initial feedback, and I'm loving the chance to get to share those experiences through video. Obviously, we do all this through audio, so I'll be able to share it through video, show some snaps of the cultures that we're experiencing, and then just time in the chair, in the barber chair. I grew up loving barbershops, and we're going to do a podcast on that, I think, next week to talk about kind of how the concept came about and how we thought about that idea, and then how we're actually doing it as we travel. So a lot of this is, as you can imagine, is not very easy, doing all this out of a backpack apiece, producing all this stuff. So we'll get into that and how we're doing all that. So we appreciate it. In case you break away before the recap at the end, please sign up for the newsletter at passportjoy.com. That's where I send out a weekly highlights of everything we're going through and a chance to see kind of in the inside of what we're experiencing that we can't cover on the podcast. All right, let's get into this episode. Okay, this is going to be Japan Travel Part 2. We recorded Part 1 that covered our first 3 weeks in Japan that looked at Tokyo, Kobe, Osaka, Koyasan, and then we finished up in Nara. And this one, we're going to talk about our final 3 weeks in Japan, where we went from Kyoto to Kyotango, which is on the coast, and then back to Tokyo to wrap up the trip. We started in Kyoto for about 6 days. Had a real modest guest house there. And then on Kyotango, we did an Airbnb on the coast with a family out there. That was amazing. And then wrapped it up in Tokyo and had some fun stuff there. So we're going to get into that. So to kick off, we're going to start off with Kyoto and talk about the things that we noticed there.
Yeah, so Kyoto or Kyoto is a city that was very similar to a lot of the other cities that we had visited. Definitely different from Tokyo. It wasn't as busy, not as congested. But the one thing I did notice was that the food options had a lot more vegetarian and vegan options. And I'm not really sure if that was just due to the fact that it was located in a closer proximity to the Buddhist temples, and that being that the Buddhist monks live a sort of lifestyle where they don't believe in killing any animals. So a lot of the restaurants have options for a lot of soy and tofu, and you can find a lot of vegetable skewers and things like that. So that was one thing I did note. But there's this area, really cool area. It's called the Pontocho area, and it is near the Kamogawa River. And what it is it's just like a really lively alley with a bunch of restaurants that line each side. And it just offers everything from inexpensive yakitori, which is essentially skewered chicken on a stick, to upscale seafood. And you can find anything from cheap noodle bowls to, like I said, the very expensive seafood. But you can find people walking around, after a day of work in their suits and ties, carrying their briefcases, and women in really nice dresses, to tourists like us that were walking around in just casual wear. And it's just a really nice area to catch something to eat. You can overlook the river outside with a lakeside view, or you can dine inside in the air conditioning if you'd like. So a really cute area. We didn't choose to do so, but we did walk around just to see some of the storefronts, which are definitely unique in the fact that they're kind of hidden. And a lot of storefronts are like that in Japan, in the fact that they have an almost tapestry-like covering over them where you don't really see a door, so you don't really know what you're walking into. So you might see a menu outside that lists something in Japanese. Sometimes they'll have an English menu as well, but you do kind of have to, pull back the cover of the restaurant, so to speak, just to see what's going on inside. So that's a really cute area, and there's hundreds of restaurants to choose from. Another area that's kind of by the Pontocho area, about a 15-minute walk, is called the Nishiki Market. And for shopaholics out there, this is a place where you can pretty much find anything. And Matt and I quite often talk about how much we love these markets. And this is a market that we went to during the day. They have everything. They have stuff from little purses to food. I don't know. I mean, you name it, it's there. They had tea. They had fresh tea leaves. They had powdered tea. We saw, what were they? Those huge nuts. I forget what kind of nuts they were. I don't know. Anyways, they had these large, chestnuts. These chestnuts that they had, they were roasting chestnuts. I'm not joking. They were like half the size of my head, and I didn't even know chestnuts grew that large. But anyways, there was fresh fish at the market there that you could buy, clothes. I mean, they had a Snoopy store. I mean, if you name it, you can dream of it. It's there and you can find it. A really cool place to see. I will say that a lot of things there, in my opinion, were a tad bit overpriced. I had seen similar products outside of that area in Kyoto that were fairly cheaper. But again, I think you're just going there for the experience of it all. Very clean. And I did see a lot of tourists there. So I think it may have been a bit of a tourist trap, but something that you want to see and experience.
Yeah, it was really neat that within, I guess, the uniqueness of Kyoto in general, that it holds a lot of its traditions, like because of the temples there and the history. It's really good at giving you a strong cultural vibe, a Japanese cultural vibe. But also it's a major city. So you've got great shopping, great modern day shopping, a lot of unique stores that you'd be used to in the States. But it also has a very nice feel for a Japanese city where you've got a lot of local eating and then a lot of the, I think he was describing the market where you got traditional crafts and things that are very homemade based offered as well. So it's Kyoto in general is just this great, unique city where you feel like this is an authentic Japanese city and you get to experience the culture, but it's also modern as well, which was neat because from different parts of town you would experience how modern it was, but then also then you would step back and be like, okay, this is a market that is offering unique items.
So full disclosure, when we were there, we had not the greatest weather. So it rained the entire time, probably, I'm not sure, like not all day long, but pretty much 75% of each day that we were there. So we didn't really get to take full advantage of a lot of the things that Kyoto had to offer. So there's a lot of parks that you can go to. So one of the days that we had, I would say partial cloudy, maybe a tad bit of sunshine for about 2 hours of the day, we hit up a place called Maruyama Park. And this park was supposed to, and if you read guidebooks or you go on the travel blogs, it's supposed to be the best place to view cherry blossoms. And so up until this point in Japan, I had not seen, in my opinion, I hadn't really, maybe I'd see like a cherry blossom or two, but I hadn't seen like full on blooming cherry blossom trees. And I really wanted to get some pictures of it and see it. And even from the travel blogs that I had read online, if you read about this park, people say at nighttime, they even have these cherry blossom trees that have like lights in them and they light up. So I was super stoked about this. And so I waited until like 5 p.m. at night and I told Matt, I said, hey, we're going to this park at this time so I can catch photos of this place during the day when these cherry blossoms are in bloom during the day. And then as the sun sets, we can catch these babies when they're lit up at night. And, in all honesty, it was quite disappointing. And I don't know if it was the time of year that we were there, but there were no cherry blossoms to be found. We walked around and quite honestly, the park was not very well kept and there was a lot of construction going on. And they had one nice bridge that we were able to take a photo on, but I was very disappointed. There was like one shrine that you were able to take a photo around, but there was a lot of signage on it. So I don't know what I was supposed to see, but I didn't see it. We walked around for a fair good amount of time. So it was a good experience. We got some exercise, but I did not see any cherry blossoms. So maybe I was missing something. Anyways, moving along. A really cool thing to note about Kyoto is that it is a hotspot for trying to, I should say, definitely stress the word trying to see a geisha. And so the weird thing about this is that prior to going here, I had totally forgot this like little known fact. And as I was like doing my research and whatnot, before Matt and I had ventured out, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to this area and we're supposed to be able to see geisha. But the weird thing about it is that I did not realize that there's under 100 geisha remaining in the city of Kyoto. So like living there and working there in these traditional tea houses. And so in reality, to actually spot a geisha out at night or during the day is a rare thing. And so the craziest thing was, like we're on the lookout for a geisha and like head on a swivel like all night long. And after a while, I kind of just gave up because when you read about this, like a touristy thing to do is you can actually go and be dressed up as a geisha and walk around in full on kimono with the shoes and everything, have your hair done and whatnot. And it's a really beautiful thing to do. But a lot of times you'll see this, but you don't really know like who's a real geisha or who's not. You can somewhat tell by facial features and you'll see them like taking photos of themselves with selfie sticks. And so you know that that's obviously not a real geisha doing that because geisha don't do that. They pretty much get dressed up. They'll run to their next thing that they're supposed to do, or they'll just be in a tea house. They're not taking selfies of themselves or they're not intermixing amongst others out in public. That's just not how they conduct themselves. So after like walking around for a couple hours, I kind of just gave up and it wasn't even in my thoughts. And Matt all of a sudden was like, oh my God, there's a geisha. And so he actually saw one and got an amazing photo of it. And I think he posted it on Instagram, but it was just such a cool thing to be able to see that. And I missed it and I was so mad. And the whole world stopped because everyone was trying to take a photo of this beautiful woman. And we saw this one lady take a photo and she was like standing on the corner and she was like, oh my God, I got this photo. And I looked at her photo. It was complete utter crap. Her photo was so blurry. And I saw Matt's and he got this awesome photo. And I'm not even biased. Her photo was total crap, but it's crazy because you literally are relying on your phone to do it. And it was in the rain and everything, but she had gotten out of a taxi and she was walking to this tea house. And I don't know, by the grace of God, Matt got this amazing photo. It was a really neat experience. And I'm so happy that he was able to do that. It's definitely a rare thing. And it's not like it just happens every single day. So
yeah, that was pretty awesome. It was a lot of fun. Just to talk more about Kyoto. Yeah, we had a ton of rain there. Actually, the typhoon Jebi came through when we were there and we had already experienced one typhoon. And this has been an extremely wet season for Asia. Our last 3 weeks there were almost all rain every day. So like Nikki's describing, we had to figure out our times to get out and about, and it wasn't that often. But the one thing we did discover while we were in Kyoto, and it kind of changed the way that we were seeing a lot of the things in Japan. Up to that point, we had thought that Japan was expensive in a way. And it wasn't that we weren't doing it right, but we were just looking at different options. And we were in Kyoto, we started to find these amazing noodle bowl places, local shops that were offering noodle bowls for about, I want to say $3 or $4 US. And they were extremely tasty. And it's one of those things where, yeah, fresh homemade. Nikki could get tofu. I was getting some chicken and pork and other stuff that you put in there. But it was almost like a mini cafeteria style where you would go and just put your order in and then pick up items like that you wanted to add to your meal. And then they would make the food right there in front of you and serve it. They just basically call your order out and then you go and get your hot bowl of noodles. But it ended up, from there, we started doing a lot more noodle bowls, and it changed our view on Japan being expensive, because we just felt like, not like the first 3 weeks were extremely expensive, but I think that we were looking at options that were more expensive than we probably could have. And at that point, we changed our game plan on how we went out to eat and took in some of these noodle bowl places. It ended up being pretty cheap from there, because we continually found meals between $4 and $5. And then we would mix in our convenience store purchases that we loved. And we fell in love with the options at the convenience stores as well, between Lawson's and 7-Eleven and Family Mart. And just to recap what we said in the episode, on the first episode, is their convenience store options are unbelievable in Japan. Fresh food, tasty food, and then you've got a chance to pick and choose other stuff that you want to add to your meals. If you're doing like hot bowls, noodle bowls, or if you're picking up sushi or whatever you want to do, fresh fruit, whatever your options you're looking for, they have it at these convenience stores. They're not that American convenience stores aren't great, but these are it just seems like it's a different level of really good, tasty food at the convenience stores in Japan. So that was awesome. And that was neat to experience that we had that change of a point of view. So from there, we went to Kyotango, which was on the coast. And again, I had a friend of a friend, my buddy Dave, who lived in Japan for 5 years. And we reached out to him and basically said, hey, we're going to have 6 weeks in Japan. What do you recommend? And most of the itinerary, almost all the itinerary that we ended up choosing, was based on Dave's guidance. And one of the things he said was, if you get a chance, you should go out to the country. And he actually knew our host that we ended up staying with at Sushi. And so he said that, hey, if you get a chance to go out to the coast, you should do it, because it's totally different than the city side. So absolutely, we took him up on it. Nikki and I love experiencing things like that. So we went out to this Airbnb that's way out on the coast. Now, again, I say way out. Japan is the size of California. So it's not that when we think in America, like, hey, you're going from one coast to the other, because essentially we were on one coast because we went to Mount Koya, which is on one coast, and then we went out to Kyotango on the other coast. It's not that far. It's skinny like California would be skinny, but at the same time, it's long like California as well. So if you go to the north side of Japan versus the south side of Japan. So we go out to the country, and it was country. There was a beautiful lake that our place was on. The ocean was only probably a 5-minute walk. Unfortunately, like we've been describing, the weather was bad the whole time we were there as well. So it was raining often, but there would be gaps in the day where we could take long walks along the lake, hour and a half, 2-hour walks along the lake. And it was gorgeous. It was nice. Yes, we had to take umbrellas sometimes, but it was still a gorgeous countryside walk. And the living was very slow, very peaceful. But it gave us the time to work on some creative projects that Nikki and I have been working on. Like I said, the guy that was there, it was a multi-generational home. So his parents lived there, that they have had that guest house in the family for years. At Sushi, and his wife and their daughter lived there as well. So you had 3 generations there living all together. And it was amazing, because grandpa would go outside and fish almost all day long, and he would catch fresh fish, and they served these amazing breakfasts. Nikki and I normally do not eat breakfast. We normally just eat lunch and dinner. But at that, because the breakfasts were so good, so we would eat these fish and all kinds of assortments of vegetables, and they did their best to make sure that Nikki had plenty of food to eat, and it was really good and tasty. Tofu, seaweed, rice, miso soup. They had fruit, big things of fruit, and a lot of veggies, and it was really good. So the grandpa would basically catch the fish 50 feet from where I would eat it the next morning. So that was pretty good, and they had all types of different fish, and it was really tasty. And then yeah, it was unique. It was different. It was fun to be able to spend time with the family. We ended up going into the library a couple of days just to get stellar internet because, again, it's the countryside. So the internet, and it was rainy, so the internet wasn't on point when we were there. But going into the library and getting to experience that, and just seeing the town, and during the long walks, there was a golf course near there. It was just it was a different vibe that we'd experienced, and the countryside was really nice and unique. And so from there, we went to, we took a long train. It was about 6 hours worth of train to Tokyo. And just a sidebar, we had talked about in part one about the train system being extremely easy. At least I did. It became more humbling as we went because the complexities of the different trains around the country, it got more and more complicated. And it's one of those things where Google Maps helps a ton, but sometimes it can be misleading because all the information doesn't align properly. So you think you're going to grab one train, or you think that the transfers are real easy, and they're not. They become difficult. But in saying all that, it's not like just as a traveler, you're the only one struggling. The locals struggle as well. We saw a lot of locals struggling with the train system and just understanding where to go. But there's a lot of people around to help. And it looks like because they're getting ready for the Olympics in 2020, that they understand that this could be a problem for people as they visit. So there's a lot of people scattered around the train that are helping you constantly. And they stepped up big time when we ended up leaving to go to the airport. There was a lady there that she explained it well, because we were a little bit behind, but she did a great job of helping us understand how easy the connection was going to be. So we took this long train ride to Tokyo, and from there we were wrapping up our trip. So we only had 4 days left in Japan after spending 6 weeks there. And we had a chance to scatter in a lot of events, and we went to go shopping a little bit. And shopping, we don't really shop. I got headphones, but we got a chance to go check some stuff out. I guess shop in a way that we get to look at shops and not purchase anything. But that was neat because there's a part of town there, Harajuku, that we love. It's really nice. It gives us a sense of like Chicago, or it's almost very Western in its feel, but you still know that you're in Japan. So that was really nice to hang out there for a day. And then we mixed in sumo wrestling, which was awesome. So the Grand Sumo Wrestling Tournament, actually, sumo wrestling is the national sport, and it's gone through kind of some highs and lows with a lot of controversy over time, because some people say it's fake. Some people say that it's fixed, because obviously there's gambling that goes on here. So people bet on these things. And at one point there was a big controversy with the local gangs that were fixing matches. So it's been a lot of crazy stuff going on with it. But regardless, it's something that is extremely entertaining. It's a lot of pageantry, if you will, around the event. A lot of traditions, and it's a lot of fun from a spectator point of view, where because of the way they enter the ring and everything that goes along with it, and how they do some of the sword ceremonies before the matches, how they announce it, the singing that goes along before the announcing of the two fighters, and then everything that, I don't know, I'm having a hard time explaining, but just the size of these men, how flexible they are with their bodies, how strong they must be. And the fact that they're 400 plus pounds and they move the way that they do. Yeah, it only lasts seconds, but the strength that's involved is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was super impressed. I mean, sumo wrestling, I remember just as a kid, like seeing sumo wrestlers and thinking they're huge, but just to see them, even though there's different varying like levels of seats. So you can have ringside seats, and then you can have box seats, which are behind the ringside seats, and then you can have balcony seats. And so we sat in the balcony seats, but our view was perfect. You could see them just perfectly. But the thing is like, they're so massive, but like Matt was saying, the flexibility that these guys have, they were like lifting their head or their legs above their heads like they were spiders. I mean, it was just so insane. Like I was thinking to myself, I mean, yeah, I can do that, but I'm a tiny person and I was a gymnast and like my tendons are probably broken down there and like that allows me to do so. But I just can't even believe that they have the ability to do this. And then watching how agile they were for as large of a being that they are, and then them sitting on the ground, like Indian style, and like, it was just phenomenal. Also, some of the guys, when they were wrestling, they legitimately were lifting each other up by I don't even know what the thing that they wear around their body is called, but it looks like a diaper, but it's not. We'll just call it the wrestling belt, suit, whatever. They would lift each other up by this like wrestling suit thing. And so you're talking about a 400-pound man lifting another 400-pound man up by a piece of cloth, completely up off the ground from an awkward angle while they've already exerted all this effort and energy, and then like scoot them out of a ring. And it looked completely effortless. And yeah, they might have made like a grunt or a sound, but I'm thinking, I can't even imagine doing that. So yeah, it was very impressive, and I'm super excited that we got tickets. There's only 6 tournaments that are held in Japan every single year, and the tickets sell out fast. And so when we got to Japan, we were not aware of that. We just thought, hey, we're going to come here, we're going to get sumo wrestling tickets. It's going to be this easy thing to do. And so when Matt went online, they were completely sold out. And so to get tickets, we had to go through like a secondary source to get them. And you have to pay a lot of money to do that. I mean, it's not just like, it wasn't like tons and tons of money, but more money than you would like to, like going on StubHub or something. So, and we're really blessed that we were able to partake in that, and especially when we're in Japan. And I'm really glad that I got to see that live in person and just see, the athletic abilities that these men have.
Yeah, and the seating was interesting because, like Nikki said, we were up on the second, I guess, the balcony level. And then below, near the ring, you can sit almost next to the ring where there were people scattered in there. And some of them seemed to be older. And these massive men, at times, they would get pushed out of the ring and fall into the crowd. There was one instance that got really close where these people almost got crushed. But that's the risk they take if you sit that close. And the weird part is all the first floor seating is all you're sitting on the ground. You don't really have the chair backs on a thin pillow, which they end up tossing. I guess if something great happens, they toss the pillows into the ring. So that was interesting. If you flip the guy over, they toss the cushions into the ring. So that was a lot of fun. But the seating was awkward. So I was really happy that we got the seats that we did, because at one point I was trying to see if we could afford to sit on the first floor, but it was way too expensive. Those tickets were really, really expensive. So we didn't get those, luckily, because I know that I would have been extremely uncomfortable trying to sit on the floor for a full day, because these matches go from 8:30 a.m. until 6 p.m. Most of the better matches are from about 2:45 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's when the folks that are ranked in a professional manner, that's when they have their matches. There's I think there was 13 matches at about 2:45, and then there was another 21 matches from about 4:45 to 6. And they go really fast. Once they start going at each other, the matches, they fight. There's a bit of ceremony as how they square off. It's really neat. They kind of square off because it doesn't start until both men put their 2 hands are on the ground, and then they go at each other. But they at times they'll square off, and then they'll just stand up and they'll go away. It's theatrical. It's almost like professional wrestling in a way, where then they get the crowd hyped up and everybody's screaming, and we had all these small kids behind us that were just going bananas for certain wrestlers. Oh, and the other thing too is really neat is, so the top performers are the latest in the day. From about 5 until 6 is when the biggest performers were there. And so these guys have sponsorships. And it was weird. So in America, obviously, you'd have sponsorships around the arena or whatnot. But there, they would bring out these scrolls, these long scrolls with, it's hard, tapestry scrolls with the men would walk around the ring, because women are not allowed in the ring. So men would walk around the ring with these tapestry scrolls that had the name of the company of sewn on that was the sponsor. So it was really wild to see how they showed their sponsorships and things like that. And the last two guys had a ton of sponsors. So there was probably 25 to 40 different men walking around the ring in groups of 15, showing all these different sponsors walking around the ring holding it. So that was really wild. And the food was cool, because that was something that once I told where we were staying at, I told the gentleman that we were going, and he was like, "Oh, you got to go early to get the chicken on the skewer." So he's like, in the box lunch. So we made sure that we didn't eat lunch, and we had the yakitori there. And it was delicious to be at a stadium and get a box lunch and yakitori on a stick. It was delicious. It was really good. It was a little bit expensive, but you expect that in a stadium. There's a lot of souvenirs sold there. And it's a typical fun, long event at an arena, but I walked away extremely happy we did it. It is definitely a sports bucket list for me. It was a ton of fun. It was awesome. Here's a crazy small world story. So we sit in our seats, and the couple next to us, the guy's wearing an Eagles hat and Eagles shirt. So I'm like, okay, this guy might be from America. And about an hour into it, because he was talking to his wife a lot, and I was talking to Nikki, and we were just getting into the seat. I asked him about the Super Bowl because of the Eagles hat. And then so we started hitting off and talking. And the next thing you know, I got an understanding of his background. And he said that he's originally from India, but him and his wife were physicians in Dallas. So then we started connecting dots. We've got a really good friend that lives in Dallas. She's a pharmacist, but she's a clinical pharmacist at a hospital, and at Baylor Hospital. And we were like, "Hey, is there any chance that..." He said, "Well, where does she work at?" And I said Baylor. And we went down this avenue. They know our friend well enough that they're connected on Facebook. And it was just crazy to be at a sumo wrestling event in Tokyo, sitting in an arena of 11,000 people, and we are sitting next to people that know friends. So whenever you think the world is big, of 8 billion people out there, it can still be extremely small at times. And it was pretty amazing. We sent a photo to our friend, and she freaked out, and it was just really cool. The other big thing that we did while we were wrapping up our time in Tokyo was went to the Digital Art Museum. It gets a ton of publicity because it just opened up recently. It's only been open for a few months now. And it's an Instagram heaven. And I think it's kind of built around that concept, but it's a vast, complex, 3-dimensional, 10,000 square meter space, 520 computers, 470 projectors, and they're giving off different visuals as you walk around. So it's part of a complex of like a mall and like a massive Toyota shop, but then you go back and it's its own museum. But you walk in, it's almost like a dark warehouse because you can't see anything. And so you're walking around with these different lines of people, but there's visuals everywhere. Just imagine that you could change your visuals wherever you go into these different rooms, and you're kind of just, because it's so dark, you're just kind of following the people in the area, but amazing visuals. And they have some... the lamp room is what really gets people excited. We got some good photos in there, but there's also visuals that move on contact, which was interesting. As you're walking along the wall, there was like these fish that were swimming, and you could touch the wall, and the fish would scatter have you touch it. So that was like neat technology that they used. But it's a big thing in Tokyo now, and it's getting a lot of hype because it's supposed to be one of the only in the world of its kind. And they had an awesome playroom for kids. I mean, all of it's just a lot of fun. It's huge, and I can see how people can really love it. I think it was nice. It probably wasn't what we thought it was going to be, but it was still a nice day out. For a rainy day like we continue to get, it was a nice day to get there. But that was it. And then we wrapped up our time and we flew to Bangkok. But Japan in general is an amazing country. To be able to spend 6 weeks there, to get a chance to understand the culture, experience the people, the kindness of the people. I know I've said it a lot, but it is unbelievable that a country that is as powerful as it is and as strong as it is in the world continues to hold the traditions of just kindness and politeness, and to take train rides with hundreds of people on it and there's not a sound. It's just quiet because everybody's being so respectful of each other. It was amazing. And then the cleanliness, the walkability, the train system. Yes, the language barrier was difficult, extremely difficult at times, but we worked through it and we found a way to get around it, and it was okay. And that's how you have to have fun with people, because you don't really understand each other, and it's a lot of fun. And it's awesome. It was great. The nightlife, the vending machines. There's so much about Japan. It's pachinko, which I never got to play. It just never happened. We talked about it enough. It's pretty confusing. It's the slot machine type game. And just everything that went into it, we really enjoyed our time in Japan. I know I'll be back. I don't know when, but it's just one of those countries where there's so much to discover. We only saw a few cities, and there's so much to discover there. And it's a place that if you've got a travel bucket list, throw it near the top because you will not be disappointed, and it's so much fun. All right, Nikki and I love to read books, and we have put together a list of our favorite books. It's over 30 books at this point at passportjoy.com/books. And this list of books we love is also available on a free PDF that you can download so you can check it out at a different time if you're not on the website or whatnot. So please go there. It's a book, so there's a lot of different, from foundational thought process and mindset, self-talk to life advice and self-improvement, and then also fun stuff, just entertaining books that we've enjoyed, and travel books, some books that we've read that changed our thought process in travel and how we go about it. So again, passportjoy.com/books, or if you're on the website, just click on the big box on the right-hand side that says books we love, and either go through the list on the website or download that free PDF that I described. And while you're there, if you haven't looked into audible.com yet, you can get 2 free audiobooks with their free trial that you can get there by clicking through the website. I recommend it. It's how I like to consume books, through my headphones while I'm doing long walks or working out. And it's great for your long commutes to work. It's just a fun way to get that content that you'll want. Again, please check out passportjoy.com/books to find all the books that Nikki and I love to read. All right, that is it for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in. We really appreciate it. As always, please be sure to subscribe. It's absolutely free. By subscribing to the podcast, it downloads directly to your phone whenever we release an episode, and that just helps us a ton and helps us get in front of new travel listeners that might not be aware of our story. And also reviews. If you can leave a review, if you can take a few minutes out and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be great. But also other feedback that we get along the way is very valuable, and we appreciate it. Like this one on Instagram from Courtney. I listened to your podcast earlier today as I traveled into a work program, and I loved it. I've been wanting to connect and ask questions, and you basically answered most of them. So cool to see you guys embracing cultures and life. Thank you so much, Courtney, for leaving that on my Instagram feed. I appreciate it. Just any kind of feedback like that is helpful and thoughtful, and knowing to take out the time, that was nice. As always, check out the show notes at the podcast tab at passportjoy.com. You'll see under each listing episode, you'll see there that you can find the links of some of the things that we mentioned today. Like today, I'll put the link to the Airbnb we stayed at in Kyotango in case you want to get out in the country of Japan. If your travels take you to Japan, you're like, hey, I want to see the countryside like Matt described, and you can go and stay with Atsushi and his family and enjoy all that. And you can always follow on with our travel updates with the weekly newsletter. Sign up at passportjoy.com for that. And also on the website, you can see blog posts, travel tips and tools, our favorite books that we read, and all the social media links there as well. All right, we'll be back next week for another new episode. Until then, safe travels to wherever you might be heading next.